Someone compliments you. They say your work is impressive. They say you're talented. They say you're smart. And for a moment, you smile. But inside, something uncomfortable happens. A quiet thought appears. If they really knew me, they wouldn't say that. So instead of feeling proud, you feel exposed. Almost like you're pretending to be someone you're not. And strangely, the more people praise you, the more fake you start to feel. Why does appreciation sometimes feel like pressure? And why does your brain treat praise like a threat instead of a reward? The answer has less to do with confidence, and more to do with how your identity was built. Visual, person sitting alone in a quiet room, looking thoughtful. 2. Problem deep dive. Most people assume praise should feel good. But for some people, it creates a strange internal tension. When someone compliments you, your first instinct isn't pride. It's doubt. You start scanning your memory for evidence that the compliment is wrong. You remember the mistakes you made. The things you struggled with. The moments you felt completely lost. Your brain quietly whispers. They're giving me too much credit. So instead of accepting praise, you shrink it. You say things like, "It was nothing. I just got lucky. Anyone could have done it." Visual, notebook page where someone crosses out the word achievement. But the strange part is this. You might actually work very hard. You might even be objectively good at what you do. Yet internally, it still feels like you're getting away with something. Psychologists sometimes call this impostor feelings. But labeling it isn't enough. Because the real question is deeper. Why would your brain reject positive evidence about yourself? Why would it defend a version of you that feels smaller? To understand that, we need to look at how identity forms in the first place. 3. Reframe. Here's the important part. Feeling fake when praised does not mean you're dishonest. And it doesn't mean you lack ability. In many cases, it means your brain learned a very specific rule growing up. Your worth is conditional. Not based on who you are. But based on whether you performed well enough. Maybe praise only came when results were perfect. Maybe mistakes were noticed more than effort. Or maybe attention only appeared when you did something impressive. Over time, your brain quietly builds a survival strategy. Instead of trusting praise, it treats it as something unstable. Something temporary. Something that could disappear the moment you fail. So rather than attaching your identity to success, your brain attaches it to effort and uncertainty. Which means when someone praises you for being capable, your internal system becomes confused. Because the identity your brain recognizes is, I'm someone who's still figuring things out. Not someone who's already good. Visual, slow-moving light patterns across a dark background. So when praise arrives, it doesn't match the story your brain believes. And whenever reality conflicts with identity, the brain usually defends the identity. 4. Psychological mechanism. To understand this clearly, imagine your brain like a thermostat for identity. A thermostat is designed to maintain a stable temperature. If the room gets too warm, it cools things down. If it gets too cold, it heats things up. Your sense of self works in a similar way. Psychologists call this self-consistency theory. Your brain tries to keep your identity stable and predictable. Even if that identity isn't flattering. Because predictability feels safer than uncertainty. Visual, simple thermostat dial slowly adjusting. So if your internal belief is, I'm not that impressive, and someone suddenly says, you're amazing, your brain experiences a mismatch. The compliment pushes your identity above the set point. So your mind automatically corrects it. You dismiss the praise. You attribute it to luck. You lower its importance. Not because you want to sabotage yourself, but because your brain is trying to restore psychological balance. There's also a second mechanism involved. Your brain stores emotional memories more strongly than logical evidence. So if earlier experiences taught you that praise disappears quickly, those memories act like warning signals. Your brain treats praise less like recognition, and more like temporary spotlight. And spotlights feel dangerous. Because once people expect something from you, failure becomes more visible. Visual, bright spotlight turning on in an empty stage. So instead of feeling safe in praise, your nervous system quietly prepares for the moment you disappoint someone. Which explains why praise sometimes feels less like validation and more like pressure. But the interesting part is this. This pattern isn't permanent. Because identity thermostats can actually be adjusted. Slowly. Deliberately. Through small psychological shifts. 5. Practical framework. Step 1. Separate identity from performance. The first shift is simple but powerful. Stop translating praise into identity statements. When someone says, "You're brilliant," your brain hears, "You must always be brilliant." And that creates pressure. Instead, mentally translate praise into specific behavior, not identity. For example, "They like the way I explained that idea." This works because the brain processes behavior-based feedback more safely than identity-based praise. It lowers the psychological stakes. Visual, person writing one sentence in a notebook. Instead of defending your identity, your brain can simply acknowledge a moment. Step 2. Allow micro-acceptance. When praise feels uncomfortable, your instinct is to reject it immediately. But the brain updates beliefs through repeated small confirmations. Not big ones. So instead of fully accepting praise, try allowing 1% agreement. Someone says, "That presentation was really clear." Instead of rejecting it, respond internally with, "Maybe that part did go well." This works because your brain's belief system changes gradually. Psychologists call this cognitive updating. Small accepted pieces of evidence slowly reshape identity over time. Step 3. Track effort, not image. Many people who feel fake focus too much on how they appear. But identity stabilizes better when attention moves toward process. At the end of the day, ask one question. What effort did I actually put in today? Not, did I impress anyone? Your brain's reward system responds strongly to effort recognition. This activates dopamine in a healthier way than approval chasing. Visual, person closing laptop and reflecting quietly. Over time, this shifts validation from external reactions to internal evidence. Step 4. Expect the praise discomfort. One of the most helpful changes is simply predicting the feeling. When praise comes, your brain will still produce that moment of discomfort. But now you understand it. Instead of thinking, "This means I'm fake," you recognize, "This is just my identity thermostat adjusting." Psychologists call this cognitive diffusion. You separate yourself from the automatic thought, which reduces its power. 6. Integration. If you remember only one idea from this video, let it be this. Your brain isn't rejecting praise because you're a fraud. It's rejecting praise because your internal identity setting hasn't caught up yet. Think of it like software running on an older version. Your achievements update faster than your self-image. So your brain keeps trying to restore the version it recognizes. But identity is not fixed. It updates through repeated experience. Through small moments of evidence. Through slowly letting reality rewrite the story. Visual, sunrise light slowly filling an empty room. The more you allow those moments to exist, the more your internal thermostat quietly adjusts. 7. Quiet empowering close. The strange thing about feeling fake is that it often happens to people who care deeply about doing things well. People who question themselves. People who keep trying to grow. And those are not the traits of a fraud. They're the traits of someone whose mind is still updating its story. So the next time someone praises you, you don't have to fully believe it. You don't have to argue with it either. Just let the moment sit there. Like a small piece of evidence your brain hasn't processed yet. Over time, those pieces begin to accumulate. And one day you might notice something subtle. The praise no longer feels like exposure. It just feels accurate. Visual, gentle ocean waves moving slowly. And that quiet shift is often how real confidence begins.